this came about because we want to make sure that everybody has broader access to information about DD services in Arlington County. And also partially because I had heard that a number of parents were trying to transition from high school into employment programs, and they were told, "Oh, go and check out the program that's right for you." But it's pretty daunting and even where to start. So we hope that this offers a brief introduction to what employment services are and how they work. Delbria Walton from Developmental Services will kick it off with an explanation, and then Jennifer Cattell from DARS will talk to us a little bit about what the Department of Aging Rehab Services does. And I believe Delbria is going to tell us that in order to be eligible for employment services, for instance, you have to not be eligible for DARS. So what does that mean? And how does DARS fit into this? And then we're really lucky that a number of the employment service providers have agreed to come and share just brief information highlighting what makes their program unique. And because the Developmental Disabilities Committee has been really centered on employment in Arlington, the employment services providers are going to talk to us about, some examples of employment for people with developmental disabilities in Arlington, as well as what they are doing to increase those employment opportunities. So with that, Tom, you have everyone on mute. The only other rule is that if you have a question, please put your question in the chat. Anyone who is in this meeting, if someone has a simple question that you want to answer, you can go ahead and answer it. But at the end of the session, in order to make sure we have time to hear from everyone, I will ask the questions that did not get answered during the webinar. So at that, Delbria, do you want to introduce yourself because you're relatively new to here in Arlington, and then kick us off?
It's just the fact that regular policy. Okay. Sorry about that. So I'm actually Sherry. I'm going to kick it off, just doing the first few slides, and then I will turn everything over to Delbria Walton. But if I may introduce myself first, I'm LaVoice Reed. I'm the Bureau Director for our Clinical and Developmental Services here within ADSD, and I'll let Delbria introduce herself.
And I'm Delbria Walton, and I am the Community and Workforce Development Specialist within the ADSD.
And I would also like to quickly introduce, but she's not taking part in the presentation today, but our Division Director, Maimuna Duckenfield, who is the Division Director for Aging and Disability Services, and she's somewhere on the screen as well. So just wanted to do a quick introduction to her before we get started. So thank you all for joining us today. We're talking about employment, and we'll get into a minute why we are leading with employment. We are not abandoning day support by leading with employment. So we'll move on into the presentation. So I wanted to just start the presentation. We like to start our presentations in ADSD in general with just an overview of the Department of Human Services mission, which is in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and people of color, create equitable access to resources and opportunities needed for every community member to be healthy, safe, and economically secure. And I'm not sure if everyone is muted or not. Tom, if you can mute everyone, and then I'll unmute myself. Thank you. Okay, and this is the context for today's presentation, is really embedded in our DHS mission, vision, and our values. The vision is a just and equitable community that is healthy, safe, and economically secure and free of systemic racism. And then lastly, and I won't go through all 5 of the values because Delbria will be sort of equating each of these values to something pertaining to employment and employment services later on in our presentation. But our values are racial equity, access, inclusion, authenticity, and accountability. And the PowerPoint presentation will be made available following this presentation. We'll post a copy of it in the chat room. And then also in the video, the YouTube video, the recording is shared, we'll also redistribute the PowerPoint presentation at that time as well. So next slide, Dobria. So also to put some of the employment in context as well, we're talking a little bit about the United States Department of Justice versus the Commonwealth, because a lot of what we do in developmental disability services, in fact, probably about 99.9% of what we do is embedded in the DOJ settlement agreement, which stems from a lawsuit back in 2018, where the Department of Justice was investigating Virginia for violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and not providing adequate services and supporting people with developmental disabilities in their community settings. And that includes employment services as well. So next slide. So the settlement agreement that is often referred to in 2012 was a settlement reached between Virginia and the Department of Justice. And it included things such as closing 4 of the 5 training centers. The Southeastern Virginia Training Center remains open, enhancing more community-based services, because if we're going to be bringing more people out of institutions, we have to have resources in the community to support them. So by June of 2021, the Commonwealth created also more waivers to be able to support people with with developmental disabilities, and increased case management, enhanced case management, access to services, added a statewide crisis system, which is under reach, and more opportunities for community living in the community. And then a big part of that is integrated and day support employment programs under the premise of employment first. I may have inadvertently just denied someone access to coming in. Sorry, Tom, I'll let you do that. It just keeps popping up. So where employment is concerned, in Arlington County, we are committed to supporting individuals we serve in creating full and meaningful life, which includes meaningful employment. I do want to say, however, at the on-front, is that because we are leading with employment in our discussions with families, we also include in our discussions other activities of daily life, such as day support and other volunteer activities. It's very person-centered, but we want to start early on in explaining and sharing with families all of the options, and that individuals with disabilities, including developmental disabilities, can work. Because often many of our families don't think that that's a possibility for their sons and daughters with disabilities. So we are leading our conversations with employment and discussing the benefits of working alongside individuals that are not disabled. But again, it's not the only option we discuss when transitioning, but we do emphasize that it is an option. Next slide. Is this you, Dobria? And you're muted.
Okay, thank you, LaVoice, for that. So employment first, and that really just starts with the assumption that anyone can work, despite their abilities, despite their level of abilities or developmental disability. They have the right to work, and they can work, and it's just a matter of us providing the right supports for them. And when we're thinking about support, that looks like integration into the community, being paid at or above minimum wage, and then really making sure that there's opportunity for growth and development for people with disabilities, just as it would be for individuals without disabilities. So how does Arlington support individuals with developmental disabilities that are ready to work? We are starting with employment first conversations. So what that really means is we are encouraging our support coordinators when they're meeting with individuals to start the conversations with employment. And we are looking for them to start those conversations pretty early on. So even starting at 14, just kind of getting individuals to think about what skills and things that they would like to develop, what are some of their interests, so that we can start to build that pipeline from transitioning from Arlington Public Schools into an employment and support services. That also means providing individuals with employment readiness opportunities. And those employment I'm so sorry. Those employment readiness opportunities are for individuals that are receiving developmental services, and it's really geared towards helping employability. So that means working on building communication skills, working on applying to jobs, working on developing people skills. So when individuals are interacting with customers and people in the community, what does that look like? And we say readiness, but what does that really mean? So for us here at Arlington, and specifically for developmental services, readiness is really an opportunity to develop and practice soft skills, including communication, critical thinking, problem solving, time management, and the ability to adapt in a workspace. Practice skills necessary for a successful interview process. And that's going to start from support coordinators helping to fill out an application to helping to practice potential job interview questions and really helping an individual get comfortable with pursuing a job. Also an opportunity to develop and practice skills necessary to work in a team-driven environment. Again, we want individuals who are ready to work in a integrated setting where they are not only in community with individuals with disabilities, but individuals without disabilities, which includes their employers, employees, and patrons of the places where they work. And then the overall just networking within the wider Arlington community. We know that sometimes individuals with disabilities can be segregated from community. And so our goal with employment first and leading with employment conversations is to really get individuals more integrated into the wider Arlington community because they are a part of Arlington. And so one of those things that are really important for anyone, not just someone with a disability, is making sure that your work is meaningful. And when we're saying meaningful employment, it's something that connects you to a greater sense of purpose. It is fundamental. It is a fundamental value. I'm so sorry. I'm not moving, so the lights have cut off on me. It's a part of a fundamental value of what American culture looks like. Often we equate having the perfect job with, solidifying the American dream. And so no one really wants to wake up and come to a job that they, don't like or aren't passionate about. And the same thing goes for individuals with disabilities. And making sure that your employment is meaningful helps to give you a greater sense of of accomplishment. It helps you to feel like you belong somewhere. And again, not just for individuals with disability, belonging is going to be important for anyone, especially in the workplace. So this is a little snapshot of who's working. So 36.9% of individuals with disabilities who want to work are employed in the US labor force with an 8.1% rate of unemployment. However, for those individuals without a disability who want to work, they are employed at a rate of 74.4% with only a 3.8% unemployment rate. And I thought that this was really important because this is a huge gap in the employment force. And I think what's really important here is for those who want to work, right? So this is saying to me is that there are individuals with disabilities who are out there who want to work, but they are just unable to break into the workforce. Okay, this is going to go a little bit deeper. So before it was individuals with disability, but I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into individuals specifically with developmental disabilities. And the current rate for individuals with developmental disabilities within the last 12 months, so ending in December of 2022, was 33.5%. And that is just developmental disabilities. The overall employment rate for individuals with a developmental disability is over 80%. So that's going to be like times 300% of the 8.1% that we saw of individuals with disabilities who are unemployment. So we noticed that there is a huge gap between individuals with disabilities and those with developmental disabilities who are wanting to be a part of the workforce. So that's 1.2 million people in the US who could perform work, but have a barrier that is preventing them for joining the workforce. So these figures really highlight the need to bring individuals with developmental disabilities into the workforce. But I think it really also highlights the opportunity that we have, and specifically in my position to engage potential employers about the benefits of having individuals with disabilities in the workforce, the opportunities that it creates, not just for those individuals, but those that they will be working with without disabilities, right? This is an opportunity to have some cross-sectional learning, not just, again, for those with disabilities, but for employees without disabilities. Okay. And this also means for us making sure that we're creating the right partnerships and engaging the right employers for the individuals that we're serving. Okay. So I mentioned this a little bit before when we're thinking about what makes a employer or an employment place successful for people with disabilities, and that is going to be a competitive and integrative employment setting. So CIE for short. And that just really means that work that is performed on a full-time or part-time basis for an individual with developmental disabilities should be compensated at or above minimum wage. And here in Arlington, we really advocate for a living wage for all individuals. The same level of benefits provided to other employees without a disability. Competitive and integrative employment is where individuals with disabilities can interact with employers and other employees without disabilities, but they're also presented opportunities for advancement like other employees without a disability who may be occupying similar positions. And these are going to be really important. These benefits are not just for, show and making sure that, the individuals with developmental disabilities have a job, but we want to make sure that they are receiving all of the perks, if you will, of working that a person without a disability would be receiving. So that's time off. That is, water bottles or, t-shirts that we have for work days, because people with developmental disabilities are going to be able to benefit from those natural supports in the work setting. And that is going to be important when we're thinking about what does it look like to provide a meaningful employment opportunity space for the people that we are serving. So really quickly, I wanted to share this clip, and this is from Project Search, which is a program through VCU. I'm not sure if this is still around, but this is going to just take a little background look into Ashley, and she is going to tell you what it is like for her in her position at the hospital. Okay, so you all got to meet Ashley a little bit. So just working alongside individuals without disabilities, um, imp promotes like a sense of accomplishment, a sense of competence and self-worth. And just watching Ashley in the video, hearing her supervisor talk about her, we see the expressions on her face that it really brought her joy. So there are different types of employment. So the first is going to be individual supported employment. So that's going to be one-on-one, ongoing support that enables an individual to work in an integrated setting. It is sustained, paid employment at or above minimum wage, integrated into a workforce setting. And for individual supported employment, that person is not typically in a group setting. But what they do have is a job coach that will come and check in with them, support them with their needs, check in with the employer, and really support that person on the job. For group supported employment, that typically looks like about 1 to 3 individuals. Um, Arriving at a set location to perform jobs and duties. Typically, the job coach stays on with them, and they help the enclave or group to move throughout their day. And so for Virginia, the state allows up to a 1 to 8 ratio for group supported employment. But for Arlington, we know that that individual attention is going to be important in helping an individual be successful in their placement. So we like to stay in a 1 to 3 or 1 to 5 ratio when it comes to group supported employment. And the last one is going to be the customized employment, this is just really a way of personalizing employment. So we do have an opportunity for support coordinators to really have those in-depth conversations with individuals to figure out what are the things that they would really be interested in and what are they really passionate about, so that we can make sure that we're identifying the right partners for individuals to be able to explore their talents and really find work that is meaningful to them. I will say that DARS has paused on customized employment funding for this moment, but we still have it in contracts with providers. All right, so barriers to employment. So I mentioned earlier that there are individuals that want to work. However, many of them are meeting barriers that are impeding them from actually being able to participate in the workforce. So right here is just a graph, and I can go through and just tell you a little bit about each of them. So about 81.6% said that their own disability is a barrier to employment for them. And so it didn't get too much into detail about what that means by their own disability, but it means that they do see their disability as a hindrance for them. And so this may also mean that they need accommodations as well. Education and training. So this is what we mean by employment readiness. So the lack of education or training that an individual may be receiving, that they feel like they're not prepared to go into the workplace. We have seen this when individuals in schools are receiving culinary arts training or are working in automotive repair. But unfortunately, when they transition out of services, they aren't able to find employment with those skills. But the things that they, are able to do, they did not receive training in them. Transportation. So that's going to be really important, whether individuals are receiving transportation through Medicaid, votive care, whether it's locally funded transportation or even public transportation. Individuals were finding transportation as a difficulty when trying to get to and from work. Accommodations. And so this is really going to look like what are the accommodations individuals need to fully participate in the workforce? And so when we're thinking about accommodations, Virginia has said that employers must make reasonable accommodations in order for people with disabilities to be able to work. And depending on your support coordinator or Arlington, I do believe that we are more than able to make a case for any type of accommodation for the individuals that we're working with. Attitudes was also a big one for individuals, and I believe that one was around 9.1%. And so that really looks like the attitudes of the employees that they're working with, but then also the attitudes of the people in community that they may be interacting and interfacing with. Um, is that person going to make fun of me? Am I going to feel comfortable and supported in the work area? And so this is also an opportunity when we were thinking early about that mutual benefit, the mutual benefits of having individuals with disability in an integrated setting will also help to address and maybe curb some of those negative attitudes and myths and stigmas that are attached to developmental disabilities. Job counseling. So that's going to go up right along with training. And that is also something that within our supported employments, we do provide job coaches and job counseling for individuals. And then lastly, it's going to be government assistance. There are some individuals who are concerned that while they do want to work and be employed within the broader workforce, that their government assistance will be somehow negatively affected. And so that is a very real concern. And so our goal is to work with them to be able to find the right level of care between working and receiving services, because we don't want anyone to be penalized for wanting to be a part of the community and be able to earn their own money. And then there's other, and that didn't necessarily differentiate what those other barriers were. All right, so LaVoice told you a little bit about what our values were here at Arlington, but I thought it was really important that we take our values and our mission and our vision and make sure that we see it in everything that we're doing, right? So our first value is going to be racial equity. So intentionally removing those structural and historical barriers. Right now, Arlington DHS is serving 16% of the Black community of Arlington. We are serving of the 9% of Arlington. So Arlington's total Black population is going to be 9%, and Arlington DHS is serving 16% of those. The Asian population of Arlington is going to be 10%, and Arlington DHS is serving about 8% of the Asian populations. And there is 16% of other. Unfortunately, other wasn't aggregated, so I wasn't able to see what that included, but of the others, of the 5% of other of Arlington County, we are supporting 16% of those. Just to note, Arlington makes up 69%, or white people in Arlington make up 69%, and we are serving 57% of those individuals here at Arlington DHS. So our goal is really making sure that we are serving at or above the individuals who are here and present in Arlington. Access, so receiving equity-driven services with ease. That means receiving job training, interview and application support, on-the-job accommodations, and with ease is going to be important because we don't want to add any other barriers to any of our individuals who are wanting to work. We want to make sure that we are not that stopping block for them. So what does it look like to be responsive, provide training, and really be supportive and accessible to these individuals, including honoring and recognizing diversity. And so that's really where competitive and integrative employment is going to come in. Not, again, like we said, it's going to be mutually beneficial to have people with disabilities working in community with people without disabilities. We want to make sure that we are not segregating our developmental disability population, and we want to make sure that they also feel a part of the community, because they are. Authenticity is being passionate about what they do and empowered to be their authentic selves. Again, meaningful employment is how we are going to support this. And that means also giving or allowing people with disabilities to share their voice, to be able to advocate for themselves, to be able to identify the things that they do and do not want to do as far as employment. And that's going to be important, especially when you think about voice and choice for people without disabilities. We want to make sure that we are also providing that voice and choice for the individuals that we're serving here in Arlington. And then lastly, accountability. So sharing information in a transparent manner, collaboratively working together towards outcomes that eliminate racial inequities. So that accountability piece is really where we are going to fall as Arlington Department of Human Services. It will be on us to provide that training, not just to employers, but other community or other individuals in the community about how do we work with individuals with disabilities? How do we provide them the supports that they need? And then what does it look like for us to continue to provide that training and to keep those lines of communication open so that we are able to support the employers that are supporting the individuals with disabilities within the county? Okay. LaVoice, I'm gonna share it back with you.
Thank you so much, Del Bria. We are at the home stretch, and then we will take some questions, starting with the questions and comments in the chat, and then we'll open it up for further questions. So what's next for Employment First and employment here in Arlington County? And I actually, Del Bria and I forgot probably one of the most important things of what's next on this slide, and that's Del Bria and Del Bria's position. So some of you may recall that we, back in 2021, the Arlington County Board supported the Department of Human Services in conducting a study that looked at best practices for employment services and day support and school transition services. And that was in large part in response to the fact that where day support in particular is concerned, is that we were serving and continue to serve and support well over 51% of the individuals open to us that are in day support programs or going to programs outside of the county. And we're committed to bringing individuals that are attending programs outside of the county back into the county for day services. But as well as, we have to create more opportunities here in the county. And the same with employment, is having employment opportunities for individuals to be able to work where they live and have jobs in Arlington County. And so that if they then decide to go outside of the county, that's a real choice and not so much a forced choice, because we don't have the resources here. So we underwent a study where we contracted with the provider, Public Consulting Group, that came up with about 8 or 9 different recommendations. And from that, we developed a gazillion work task related to that. But we needed someone to be able to do that work. And so our leadership here at DHS supported our division in creating Del Bria's position, which is community and workforce development specialist. And that is looking at supporting the department in developing, expanding day support services, as well as employment services, and dealing also with some of the barriers that we experience where transportation is also concerned. And so she really has been able, in bringing her on board, we've been able to finally move forward with several of the recommendations in the Public Consulting Group work study. So for example, what when you look at some of the barriers that Del Bria had highlighted, one of them being education and training. And so one of the things that she and I were actually talking about today and this will be something that will, ultimately benefit our employment services providers as well, is really getting out into the community and breaking down myths. So we want to start identifying potential employers, not that we're going out and saying, hey, will you hire this person? Will you hire that person? But we want to lay the foundation work of starting to break down barriers and address barriers that employees have about individuals with developmental disabilities and employing them, as well. That'll set a foundation for our employment services providers to come after the work that we're doing, to be able to partner with some of these providers and employers, and hopefully leading to opportunities for individual supported employment as well as group supported employment. So that's just one example in terms of her role. So what's next for employment and employment first here? Really, a lot of it starts with this position. We're also looking to develop or to create and open this summer an employment readiness program. For some of you that are familiar with the PEP program, Program for Employment Preparedness, is sort of an extension of that beyond the school system. But for those individuals who have expressed an interest in working, but continue to need some skill development in areas of communication, for example, some socialization skills, and other just job readiness skills, this program will support them in that effort. So it allows support up to, I think we're saying up to 3 years, 1 to 3 years, but it's really preparing individuals to be able to transition into group supported or individual supported employment programs. And it's intentionally intended to be fluid in that we want people moving through the program. So unlike traditional day support programs, where individuals can remain in a program, 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years, this is really moving people through the program so that we can serve others. And not everyone will stay for 3 years. Not everyone will stay for 1 year. So some people might, only need 1 year for support and services, but it allows us to be able to serve more people to maximize the program. Group supported employment expansion. So we currently have an enclaves right now, one, because we're no longer doing Goodwill, but I digress for a minute. But we have a group supported employment with Service Sources, our current provider for that. But as we look to develop group supported employment, we do hope to and look to expand that in years to come, to have more opportunities for that here in the county. And meeting state metrics, that's something we're actually quite proud of here. So, and the state has a metrics that of those individuals that you support that say they want to work, of having 50% or higher actually in employment. And so we're at about 51, 52% of our individuals that say they want to work. We have more than 50% of them that are actually employed. And we just want to keep that number growing, just keep it, just going up, and providing the opportunities in the community, breaking down barriers for people to be able to work and have meaningful employment. We're looking to increase our partnership and our opportunities across the department, as well as Arlington Public Schools, and really just trying to target students earlier and earlier. Currently, we're still doing that year before a student ages out of school, but we've been saying for some time, we want to increase that to 2 years and then 3 years. And so we do have plans in terms of expanding that to start sooner at getting students prepared. We do start having conversations, however, at the age of 14 or higher, and that comes from the state. So everyone 14 and older, we are required to have an annual employment conversation. And that's more than just saying, do you want to work? We have to understand, and we're explaining to them what employment is in the context of competitive integrated employment. And we're trying to identify that if they say they don't want to work, we are asking the questions, well, what are the barriers? Why do you think you can't work? So it's not just, do you want to work? You check off a box and you're done. It's really understanding why people aren't able to work, because there are barriers that we might actually be able to address. But if we're not having those conversations, we're not going to know. And then we're also looking, as we develop and expand and change how we do services and supports, is really looking to have more hybrid programming opportunities, so that if somebody has, that's in a traditional day program where they're typically going 5 days a week. But if they say, hey, I want to work, but I don't really want to work 5 days a week, of having a hybrid programming where maybe they can do day support for 3 days a week and employment for 2 days a week, but really letting what the individual is interested in drive the services. So we're not completely there yet, but that is absolutely the direction that we are going in Arlington with our services for day support and employment, of giving the individuals we support more of an option to drive what their day looks like. Next slide, I think, is some resources. So again, you'll get the PowerPoint presentation. This just has some resources for the Association of People Supporting Employment, Office of Disability Employment Policy, and the ARC of Virginia, which has some great information about the settlement agreement. And then we have a QR code, Q something code.
Yeah, so below is the QR code. And if you scan it, it will take you directly to our YouTube of the Arlington DHS Mission, Vision, and Values, being delivered by Anita Friedman. So it's a nice little YouTube video. So if you scan it, you can learn more about our mission, vision, and values here at Arlington.
And we're also working on some great user-friendly one-pagers. So Delbria has been working on an employment readiness one-pager that's just about done, that we look forward to sharing with you all, and employment services, habilitation services. So we have some other just printed material that we're looking forward to sharing out as well. So if it's okay, Sherry, I'd like to start with some questions and comments in the chat.
LaVoice, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to hold the questions for the chat, from the chat, until the end, because we have 5 providers who have agreed to present today, as well as DARS. So if anyone can answer any questions in the chat via chat, that'll be great. But I'd like to move on to Jennifer, because some of the folks want to find out who these providers are and what they have to offer, and we're not going to have time before the end if we take questions now. So at that, thank you, Delbria. Thank you, LaVoice. Thank you, Maimuna. I'd like to introduce Jennifer Catlett, who's with the Department of Aging and Rehabilitation Services. If you want to throw in one of the questions that Diane had, she wanted to know a little bit about how many pre-eds students you have here in Arlington. But other than that, I'm going to give it to you, Jennifer.
Awesome. Thanks, Sherry. Hi, guys. I'm Jennifer Cattell. I am one of the adult counselors at DARS. I do have a PowerPoint that I'll share. It kind of touches on DARS as an overview, so it will touch on the pre-eds as well as kind of the adult services. And then to answer the question regarding how many students are receiving pre-ed services in Arlington, I don't have an answer to that. Had I known that, I would have kind of done some research ahead of time. But if you're interested, I can ask and see if that's something that we can get. So I'm going to share a PowerPoint if that's okay. Hold on.
Tom, does Jennifer have to do anything special?
Is it working?
We see it.
Okay, good. Let me kind of go through, and all of the information that everybody had beforehand is great, because I won't have to do as much of the information in regards to some of the service. But essentially, so DARS is the Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services. So obviously we have the aging services, who are a separate office from us. We are the rehabilitative services side. So our mission is to improve the employment, quality of life, security, and independence of older Virginians with disabilities, and their families. We do receive federal and state funding for the rehabilitation program. And we support individuals with disabilities in preparing for, obtaining, and maintaining employment. So some of the services, the program is vocational rehabilitation. We also have the pre-ETS and transition services. And for individuals who don't know, pre-ETS is the pre-employment transition services. So those are those services that are being completed in like the high school, or maybe even the PEP program that was mentioned earlier as examples. And we'll get to the exact services that those include later. We also have the Wilson Workforce and Rehabilitation Center. They're in Fishersville, Virginia, and they have training programs, driver's training, vocational evaluation, and lots of other services down there to offer. And then rehabilitation technology and the Virginia Assistive Technology System. So that's really our assistive technology program. So we can offer those to individuals who might need like a consult of how to perform their jobs better. That can be anything from just strategies to actual technology. So we do have some staff in that area. So again, I talked kind of about the services that we offer and the purpose. The goal of is integrated community-based competitive employment. So I know that the previous presenters talked a lot about that competitive integrated employment, meaning that it has to be in a competitive, meaning minimum wage or above, position in the community with others with and without disabilities. So none of the enclaves or anything like that. If there's a question about whether certain employment meets those criteria, we do have staff that can go out and make that judgment call of whether something qualifies as competitive integrated employment or not. Like I said, I'm a rehabilitation counselor, so we work with individuals and their support teams and important people in their life to come up with what we call an IPE, or an individual plan for employment. And so that kind of identifies what the employment goal is going to be, what services are going to be needed to reach the goal, who's going to provide those services, fund those services, and so on. So it's a collaborative plan that we developed together. And then they also, we have different counselors that are providing pre-ETS. We have counselors there that work within the school systems. Arlington right now is being covered by Keisha Malloy. So if you hear that name, or if you need to connect, that's who's covering Arlington schools right now. And then we also determine eligibility for services. I'll cover eligibility in a different slide. We're helping identify what feasible employment goals might look like, or help people explore if they're not sure. And again, I talked about the individual plan for employment and the steps that are on that. So that's my role. Going back to the pre-employment transition services, there are 5 areas, and those are job exploration counseling, work-based learning opportunities, counseling on opportunities for post-secondary education and training, and then workplace readiness training to develop social skills and independent living, and then also self-advocacy. So those are the 5 areas that are covered with those pre-ETS services. Who's can receive them, student with a disability. So in high school or in those post-secondary, college, or other programs like, the PEP program in Arlington, between 14 and 22, and they're receiving special education services or have a 504 plan. So our program, again, is designed to help people prepare for, obtain, and maintain employment. That helps them increase their ability to live independently in their communities like everyone else. And then we work with people with a variety of disabilities. So that can be IDDD. I know that's more the focus here, but also any other physical or mental impairments. And we are an eligibility-based program. And again, I'll get to that here in a second. These are just some of the examples of services that we can provide. Services are very individualized based on each person, so they may look different from person to person based on their situation, interests, and what their needs are. But counseling and guidance, career exploration, vocational evaluations, job seeking skills like resume development, interviewing skills, things like that. Supported employment was touched on previously. So if they need a job coach, there's that support. Training if they need like a certificate or other specialized training to reach their goal. And then I talked about some of the rehab engineering and assistive technology as well. We can do those consults with those staff. I talked a little bit already about Wilson Workforce Rehab Center. PERT has changed a little bit, so I'm not going to get too much into that. But again, Wilson Workforce and Rehab Center provides some of those like evaluations, trainings, not so much the medical rehabilitation anymore, life skills evaluations and training, driver's evaluations, things like that. Cost, there's no fee to apply for information about DARS. So an intake doesn't cost any money. Anything that we do to help determine eligibility does not cost any money. Any services that are provided by DARS staff, so counseling and guidance, vocational evaluation, things like that, resume assistance, interviewing support, those are at no cost. Things that would cost money like job coaching or trainings, things like that. We do look at the household income. So what we do is we look at the tax return of the, or we look at the most recent tax return that the individual receiving services is listed on. So if they're listed on a parent's tax return, we look at that tax return and determine what the cost share would be. Never any surprise cost. It would always be a discussion up front. But if a person is on SSI or SSDI, they are automatically qualified for services without paying. So there's that piece of information. Another thing kind of important to say to that, the people that are on Social Security, I know it's a common fear that they either don't want to lose those benefits or are unsure of what it would look like to work their way off those benefits. So we can provide a service for benefits counseling. We have vendors that provide that to help understand what that would look like, how working will impact the SSI, SSDI benefits, and kind of run multiple scenarios so that an individual and their families are able to make the decision of whether they want to work their way off of benefits or whether they want to work while still maintaining those benefits. So we do that with people who are receiving Social Security benefits. So I already gave a few examples of no-cost services, but again, listed here. And then any of the cost services that are on the right. So anything that costs money, training, medical equipment, assistive technology, things like that. So just some more of those examples. So eligibility, to be eligible for DARS services, there has to be a documented physical, mental, emotional, sensory, or learning disability. And that there has to be a limitation to employment because of that disability. We look at 7 different functional limitation areas. So if they meet at least one of those areas, that qualifies them for services. They also have to be expected to be looking for competitive integrated employment. So while volunteering is great, it's not something that DARS provides services to support. It's that we're really looking to support that competitive integrated employment. They also must be legally eligible to work in the United States, be living, working, or going to school in Virginia, and then wanting to work. It is client choice. If they don't want to work, they're not required to participate in services. And one thing I'll add to here, Since we are so close to other states, it's not easy we can't just like if you move out of state, we can't transfer cases between states. Every state has their own vocational rehabilitation program. If, for example, if somebody was receiving services from DARS in Virginia and moved to Maryland, they would have to reapply in Maryland for their services. So we can't transfer between states. How to apply for services. Students usually are referred through their school, but if not, or if there's like a homeschooling situation or something like that, they can contact our local office. Here in Alexandria, we cover Arlington. And I think there's some contact information at the end of this PowerPoint that will show what that contact information is. Adults, I am the primary counselor for any referrals made in Arlington, with the exception of TANF. Elizabeth Rowe works with the TANF program, and then any substance abuse, Nicole Hargraves covers that. However, if I get a referral, I'm happy to get it to the correct person. So there's no wrong person to send it to. We'll get you to the right counselor. So the first step to that after a referral is we schedule an intake meeting. There'll be some documentation that is requested, social security card, photo ID, disability documentation. If the person has a legal guardian, they need to be present and sign paperwork as well. But we'll tell you all that up front in preparation for your intake meeting with us. So again, the referral is the first step. That intake meeting, that's where we really gather a lot of information, get to know the person as an individual, what they're looking for, what their interests are, what the limitations are, and kind of what they're seeking from DARS. From there, we determine eligibility. We do have 60 days to determine that. That just allows us time to get information if it's not provided up front. That order of selection down there means a wait list. Thankfully, we don't currently have one. So that's not an issue right now. From there, we develop that individual plan for employment, where services are listed that will be provided. And then those services should lead to competitive integrated employment. Once somebody is successfully working on the job for at least 90 days, then that leads to case closure with DARS. However, we do partner with the CSB waivers and our vendors who provide job coaching, and they can continue to receive on-the-job support from those job coaches with a different funding source. So I know a lot of people get worried saying, when DARS closes my case, I'm going to lose my job coach, and that's not the case. We just look at different funding sources. And again, we have that conversation. It won't be a surprise or anything like that, like that we're closing a case. It'll just kind of be leading up to that. We just like to talk about it at intake as well, so that people kind of know what to expect. So we are not a job placement agency, so we can't guarantee a job for everyone. And so essentially what that means is that some people think that we have just employers that give us jobs that are available, and that we can just say, oh, this person's looking for data entry and we have a job available. We're not a placement agency in that sense. The placement services that we provide are supports that prepare someone to engage in their own job search, whether that be with the support of a job coach or staff or anything like that. So we're not a placement agency. We have to maintain active contact in order for their case to remain open. I know during COVID, a lot of services halted just because people, we weren't able to leave our homes, but that caused, thankfully, we're seeing an increase in numbers and participation now. So I'm really excited about that. And then we can't pay for services if a person doesn't meet financial participation requirements, if a service isn't needed for them to reach their employment goal, or if there's evidence that somebody wouldn't benefit from the service that we're looking for. That's an individualized conversation that would be with the counselor and the individual and their support team. Again, for contact information, there is the website that you can find local offices. We have a lot throughout the state, but Arlington specifically, the Alexandria office covers Arlington. The ETRs at the school should have contact with the counselor that's assigned there. And then they can put you in touch. Again, Keisha Malloy is covering as counselor for Arlington schools at this point. Our central offices are located in Richmond, and there's their contact information as well. And then the local offices around here, that number under Alexandria, if you need to make a referral or ask a general question. We also have our Fairfax office and Leesburg. Those are the other closest office. Let me see. Yeah, so school coverage areas, again, per office, we cover different schools. So that's kind of what we have, an overview of DARS. Like I said, we do partner with vendors who you'll hear from next to provide services. Everything's very individualized. And then there are different counselors for different areas. So, but again, no wrong contact. So wherever you make the referral or phone call, they'll get you connected to the correct person. I'm also always happy to answer questions or about services or who to connect you to as well. I can put my contact information either in the chat, or Sherry, I'm wondering if you're going to send out maybe contact information as well.
Yes, I'll send out contact. Well, I'll send out this PowerPoint.
Okay.
If you want me to add your email address, I'll do that.
Sure, I can do that.
Thank you. If you add it to the PowerPoint, then it'll just be in there.
Okay, perfect.
And, Jennifer, thank you so much. Everyone's done everything so quickly, and I'm very nervous about making sure we hear from the providers. So what I'm going to do next, first of all, thank you, those of you who are answering questions. Joy Haley is with Arlington Public Schools, and so the transition coordinators are your primary entree to DARS if your person's still in school. And then you can contact DARS directly, but your CSB case manager is a key entree point to DARS also if you have an adult who is currently receiving services. So for the next part, I'm going to ask the folks from NVLE, Jennifer Orchant-Acito, Best Buddies, Molly Whalen, the Choice Group, Christy Stegman, ServiceSource, Lauren Goldschmidt, and Melwood, Elizabeth Foster, to speak in turn. As you can see, we only have 55 minutes left, and we've limited everyone to 10 minutes. If those of you who are professionals who have answers to any of the questions in the chat can answer questions in the chat, we would very much appreciate it, because there's some very good questions there. And then at that, I'm going to call the folks in the order that they responded. So the first will be Joanne Orchant-Acito from NVLE, and I am putting you on a timer.
That's fine.
I'll let you know a couple of minutes before we end. And we're especially interested in finding out what's going on in Arlington. So if you want to help out with some of that first, that's terrific.
Sure. And I'm going to not do a PowerPoint. I have one sitting here on my screen, but I imagine the families are kind of PowerPointed out with all the information. And it was a lot of information from the CSB and DARS. So
and Tom, if you can spotlight the person speaking, that would also be helpful so people can see her better.
Probably if you were able to take the DARS PowerPoint off the screen, that would probably work. Because that's what I'm still seeing is the DARS PowerPoint. Okay, that can work. So thank you all. We appreciate having the opportunity to talk for a few minutes with you all. I will try to speak mostly about Arlington and what MVLE has done or is looking to do in the Arlington area. We are an employment service provider. We are part of the FedCap family, which is a national and international organization. We joined them in 2018. And there is a FedCap division in Washington, D.C., and we do share a lot of job leads and work with them very cooperatively. The parent company is in New York City, and the big goal of FedCap is to get people out of poverty, is to find those supports so people can be employed and can have a reduced reliance on their subsidies, their Social Security or SSDI or other benefits. So it's a huge goal of FedCap, and we are proud to be a partner with them in that. I was happy to hear LaVoice talk about hybrid services because that sometimes is a barrier to employment for persons with disabilities if they're trying to get into employment. Some of the things that MVLE has done recently, it is in a neighboring locality, Sherry, I'm going to speak about it, is our employment readiness program. We currently have, it's a pilot program, we have like 6 individuals in it. They had all been in our day program. And we partner, it's a multidisciplinary approach. We do movement with them. We have a speech group that we work with. Empower Me, which is a platform for assistive technology. We have behavioral supports. We work on those soft skills that can have people not be successful on the job. And it's only been in existence about 6 months. Again, it's a small program, but one of the individuals is already employed full-time. And I had the pleasure of meeting with him a couple of weeks ago. His job coach was on vacation. And I said, so how's work? I went and visited him at his work site. And he's like, I went to Burger King yesterday with my coworker. And that's one of the best things to hear. It's not all about, well, hey, I know how to do this task or that task. He went to a social. He went out to lunch with his coworker and he enjoyed himself. So again, it's a small program, but we're really proud of how fast one of the individuals has been able to land employment. And now the group is already saying, well, so-and-so is really ready, Joanne. So it's on me and my team now to find employment for the next individual. So we're really, really excited about that program. Like other vendors that are on the call, we do customized employment and individual supported employment and group employment. We have done group employment in Arlington in the past. We welcome the opportunity again to do it. It's been very difficult for all of us coming out of the pandemic. Some contracts have been lost, some are being redone. One of our greatest partnerships, and again, I'm sorry to say it's not yet in Arlington, is with a large hospital setting where they are directly paid by the employer. They work in different departments in the hospital, and we have an on-site job coach. So it's kind of like, it's a clustered employment, not quite group employment, but it is something we hope to replicate across regions and certainly into Arlington. When I talk to our staff about some folks that we've supported in the past or currently in Arlington, people have talked to me about, Arlington Library. We had people who had worked there very successfully, thrift stores. We had a gentleman who was a pet walker for a year. And I loved hearing about him and the pets and the dogs and all the different houses he went to and the neighborhoods he was in. So those have been some job opportunities that we have had throughout the Arlington area. We do partner, I'm sorry, I'm going to put my glasses on, not only with the thrift stores, we've had the relationship with the library, a lot of grocery stores we partner with, those big box stores that we all love and sometimes hate. This thing called a large fulfillment center that's coming into your area. We have worked with them a great deal in Maryland, so we hope to do the same in Arlington and a lot of various government entities, because in addition to the employment services we are an Ability One provider. And with that, there are a number of contracts we have on bases that are near Arlington. And so people have those opportunities, and those are competitive integrative work settings. People there are earning, $16, $17 an hour working full time, and they have wonderful benefit opportunities if they want to take advantage of those. Another opportunity we have is we are a ticket to work vendor. which can work for some of the folks who have developmental disabilities. It's just you have to have I'm gonna get it wrong. You have to have SSDI, right? Yeah.
SSI or SSDI. That's right.
SSI or SSDI between the ages of 16 to 18 to 64. So we are a ticket to work vendor, one of our employment specialists. That is her niche. And we are enjoying that. And it's a wonderful opportunity for people to seek employment. So I'm keeping it brief, Sherry. And I want to say also in terms of other partners, all of us we work with our board of directors all the time. They have relationships with companies in Arlington. Anytime you're working with big hospitals, assisted living facilities, George Mason, the community college communities, you're going to develop relationships, which we have, and what we're always asking them. So who can we talk to in Arlington? So, you work at such and such? Give me that entree into that business so we can talk to them about some of the individuals we want to support there. And we also have strong relationships with our state senators and delegates. And those are also, they are great resources for employment opportunities, as well as to talk about some of the challenges that people may have in Arlington and other parts of Northern Virginia. So we welcome the opportunity to talk with you all. I'm quite sure I was under 10 minutes, right, Sherry?
Yes, you have 2 minutes left, so thank you so much. We appreciate that, and it's exciting to hear some of the wonderful things that you're doing, and busting some of our perceptions on our DD committee that there are not too many people working in Arlington. So thank you. Our next is Molly Whalen from Best Buddies.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to be super quick because I'm very late for a meeting that I had to hop off on at 5 o'clock. But I'm Molly Whalen. I'm with the State Director of Best Buddies in Virginia and DC. Many of you might have heard of Best Buddies. It's a friendship program originally started at Georgetown University for people with and without disabilities, developmental disabilities, to have friends in a programs. We are now in elementary through college programs, but we also have a leadership development program, which is about self-advocacy and speech coaching. And we also have a jobs program. Here in Virginia, we have a contract with DARS, the Fairfax CSB, and the Arlington CSB. We are a small jobs program. We have 2 employment consultants. We're about to add a third, and we support about 50 people in our jobs program. We provide individualized supported employment, job coaching, job development, job placement. One of the things that I like to say about our program is while our jobs participants come in to work, we are very particular that we only serve people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and people who want to work. Not that their parents want to work or not that they're counselors, but that the individual truly wants to try work. And we will work with them to set goals, to set, abilities to reach things, work on all kinds of skills, including travel training, soft skills, all mentioned before. And while they come into our jobs program, they are often holistically wrapped around in our other programs. Almost all of our jobs participants are also in our adult friendship program, Citizens, and they are matched with an individual without a disability to have an adult friendship and relationship. They are also involved in some of our other activities like our ambassadors. They do some public speaking. We're involved with our big friendship walk on the National Mall. So they come in through the jobs program, but often have an opportunity to really expand their independent living skills, their soft skills, their friendship skills, their social skills. The other part is we have a international, Best Buddies International has some national partnerships with employers. We have a huge partnership with the TJX companies, which is the company that does Marshalls, Home Goods, TJX. So we have a lead that gets kind of right through to the hiring process with those stores. So that's where we've been really successful in Arlington with Marshalls and TJX and Home Goods. The great thing is the managers are aware of Best Buddies. So when we go through the application process, they understand that a job coach can come along with an applicant. that they can participate in the onboarding and the training, and they really kind of get it. So it kind of takes away all the cloudiness of getting in through the HR process. And in fact, not Arlington, but we recently just placed 3 different people through DC's Voc Rehab into 2 at Marshalls and 1 at TJX. We also have a partnership with JLL, and they do a lot of service provider administration contracts with everything from mail rooms, receptionist, some kind of on-site food services as well. And we have a brand new partnership with the Cheesecake Factory as well. So those are the areas that I think we cover. I think everybody else has talked about all the other wonderful things in supported employment. I will just give a shout out. I'm a parent of 2 young adults with developmental disabilities. They're 21 and 23. And I loved what was shared earlier. I hope one of the things is getting parents to talk about, like, with their young adults, that work is the future, and mine know that they have to work after their programs. So we really see that partnership between the agencies, ourselves, the parents and families. And again, because we do those other programs, we are really connected to the support network that our jobs participants come in. So we really want them to embrace work. We look for jobs that they want to do. We're very person-centered in all of our job development, but we really talk a lot about that. Working means independence, and independence means getting to choose the future and the life that you want to have. And we do that with our self-advocacy too. I will stop there.
And if anyone's interested in Best Buddies Citizens, that is a Best Buddies program for adults, and you don't have to be in the employment program to apply to become a Best Buddies citizen.
Yeah.
You also have partnerships with is it Accenture that you have the leadership program with?
We do a leadership program. One of our ambassador trainings is with Accenture, and so we have a Skills to Succeed. In fact, we're going to have that opening up on May 4th. Sherry, I'll be happy to share with you the application. It's free. It's for 5 Thursdays from May 4th on, from 4 to 5:30 at the Accenture offices in Arlington. And the Accenture team does the whole thing. They provide mentors. They talk about networking and job skills and everything else. I can send that to you. And I will give a plug out to the Citizens Program. We have 350 participants, both people with disabilities and without, and over 100 matches in Washington, throughout the Washington metro area. And just a shout out to those without disabilities. We are in real need of peers, because we have a little bit of a waiting list with our people with disabilities. So if you have anyone who would be interested in a one-to-one friendship, they're really a lot of fun. Please come and see us, or I'm sure Sherry will send out all the information, and I'm happy to, you can email me and I'll help you get you in the right direction with our staff.
Thank you, Molly. And the leadership, the program at Accenture, you do not have to be a Best Buddies Citizen client, but you do have an opportunity to meet the folks at Best Buddies and consider whether or not that is the program for you. So thank you so much, Molly. Sorry for pulling you away from the meeting. And our next speaker is Christy Stegman from the Choice Group.
Hi, I'm Christy Stegman. I'm the Director of Community Services for the Choice Group. So at the Choice Group, we are a vendor for DARS. We also work with, we'll take private pay as well as work with the CSBs and waiver services. So we provide supported employment throughout the Commonwealth. We're based out of Richmond, but we have counselors all over. In our Northern Virginia area, we have a little bit more than 20 vocational counselors at this time, kind of serving all of the DARS offices that we consider Northern Virginia. So we certainly have a lot of services going on in Arlington. And with our additional services, instead of individual supported employment, we work a lot with the school systems to do pre-employment transition services, whether we're helping someone explore the world of work or doing that pre-employment readiness with developing resumes, and putting in applications. A lot of our students over the summer will come to us wanting to have a summer work experience where they're either paid or unpaid in a position where we can support them with a job coach to start learning about what work is like so that we can help in that transition plan. We also have the ability to do voc evaluations to determine some interests and help lead to a vocational goal that'll work for an individual. We also provide positive behavioral support for individuals who might have some barriers due to behavior that need to be addressed, whether before they're working or while they're working. And then we also provide benefits planning services for those individuals um, who are receiving SSI or SSDI, so they don't get that scary letter from Social Security and just quit their job right away. So we want to avoid that and give them the education that they need. We also provide a class called Peers, which is a social program for young adults with disabilities to, learn those social skills, how to make friendships, how to develop relationships, how to navigate problems on the job. And that class actually was based out of Richmond. But one good thing that came out of the pandemic is all of these virtual platforms. Now we're able to help other individuals throughout the state by getting them into this program, which is held remotely now. Then we also provide community support services where if somebody has some barriers that are outside of employment, but they need some assistance, let's say setting up childcare so that they can be successful in employment, then we're able to work with DARS and develop a plan for that. So I did want to just share 2 stories about some individuals that we work with from the Arlington area to discuss just kind of what their path to employment was. So one of our clients was referred to us by DARS, and we started with the traditional supported employment, doing assessments to figure out what kind of job they would like, and then helping them with applications, talking to employers, and then once they are placed into the position, we provided that on-site job coach support as they're learning and mastering their skills, and then faded our services from there. But as this individual was working, we realized that there were some behavioral support needs where it was going to impact his job. So we were able to provide that service, that PBS service, to address, figure out what was causing these behaviors, gives them strategies to navigate this and, help him be successful as he was working. And then that same individual also was receiving SSI. So his family was very confused about how work was going to impact his cash benefits, his medical benefits. So then we brought in one of our benefits planners to also explain that to them, help the family understand, submitting pay stubs and getting that information to Social Security. And so then once he was stable on the job, this individual did have a Medicaid waiver. So once we ended DARS funding, we transitioned over to using the waiver, and they were able to maintain that ongoing job coaching support. As they were working, we would come in, once a week or a couple times a month just to make sure if there are any issues, we would address them. So then the second story I wanted to share was a young lady came to us for supported employment, and had done some assessments, wanted to do silverware rolling. So she was able to work with our job coach to find a position at a local restaurant in Arlington, and she worked there for over a year, and then said, I think I want something else. So we got her back to DARS, and we were able to do some other assessments, and she determined that she wanted to work at a movie theater. So we got her into a movie theater in the Arlington area, and things were going great. She's been there since 2018. Well, it was going great until this pandemic happened. And so as you guys can remember, the movie theaters were closed down. So she was laid off for a bit, needed some help with, navigating unemployment and just what to do. And then as those movie theaters started to reopen, since she had a job coach that was continuing to follow her case, even though she wasn't technically working, we were able to get her back in with the employer. She did need a little bit of retraining, which we were able to do. And she's, been back up and running for several years now. So that is the stories that I wanted to share, just to give you a little insight as to what some of our services look like.
Tom, can you please focus on Christy? And Christy, are you doing anything in particular to increase job opportunities in Arlington, like finding employers, or are all the jobs first the person with a disability says this is what I want to do, and then you go and try to find a position? So are you doing anything particular with Arlington employers?
So we work with several employers in the Arlington area. We individualize all of our job searches on what a client is interested in doing. So, for example, the individuals I was talking about, one wanted to work in a grocery store and a restaurant, and then eventually movie theater. We're going out and meeting with those employers and kind of marketing our services and our clients that way. So as far as like official partnerships with businesses, we don't have that, but we are, going out and meeting with employers of interest for our specific clients.
Thank you. Everybody's doing such a great job. Lauren is next with ServiceSource. And Lauren, thank you for answering some of the questions that people had. If any of the other providers also want to answer questions and add to some of the helpful answers, and that's fine. Or Jennifer or Delbria or Diane or Joy, if you have any answers to these questions, that would be helpful. So next is Lauren Goldschmidt from ServiceSource. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Lovely to.
Okay, great. Tom is gonna spotlight you.
Okay. All right. I do have a PowerPoint, but I'm going to do my very best to stay on track with this PowerPoint. I'm hoping it's going to keep me on track. So bear with me while I pull up my PowerPoint. Okay, so I'm just gonna, so ServiceSource, we're a nonprofit organization. We provide employment services and community integration services as well for individuals with disabilities in the Northern Virginia area, including Arlington. I'm just gonna skip through this. So what makes us unique? We serve approximately 175 Arlington residents across all of our programs, and we really do our best to provide services for our individuals served primarily. Those are our first customers, but also for our families and for our employers. So for families, we provide some education about what it looks like to start employment. So for individuals who are moving from a work-based program with high school to a employment position out in the community, there are some differences with that. So we include the families in those conversations because families are often the best advocates when they're working with their individuals, their loved ones, and we want to include families in that conversation with the individual's permission. We also do work with the employers. So we do both informal and formal disability education for employers, tailored to the individuals who are actually working at that location and their strengths, their support needs. We want the employers to be able to provide those natural supports for individuals once we fade our services with individual support employment, especially. So we have service delivery at multiple levels. So we've talked about individual supported employment. That's something that DARS provides. We also have group supported and ServiceSource partners of DARS to provide those services as well. We have about 15 or 16 folks working in the in the DC region and Northern Virginia region. And so, a good number of those individuals are supporting folks in Arlington. And we provide a lot of the services that were already mentioned: situational assessments, job development, job coaching, follow along supports. We also provide group supported employment. So for individuals who are interested in working, but maybe need a little bit more support, more supervision, and that group supported employment provides a supervisor of someone 100%, pretty much 100% of the time. We also have Ability One employment, where Service Source is the employer and someone is working at various locations. So in Arlington, we have our Fort Myer location, where we have both Ability One and group supported employment opportunities. We also have a number of Ability One employment opportunities in the DC region. If folks are not familiar with Ability One, I'll be happy to provide a definition in the chat, but I want to make sure I stick to my time. And then we also have a number of community integration locations, 2 in Arlington and then 1 right nearby in Old Town Alexandria, which includes a variety of self-employment opportunities. We also have a Ticket to Work program with the Arlington Employment Center, which again was already mentioned. It's a program for individuals who are Social Security recipients, SSI and SSDI, who are interested in working. We provide pre-employment transition services in the Arlington area. So last year we provided pre-ETS groups in the school during the school day at Yorktown, Washington, and Liberty, and Wakefield. And we're about to start 2 groups at Wakefield this month. So we're continuing to provide those services for Arlington students in the schools during the school day. We also do work-based learning experiences during the summer and throughout the school year as well, where people can try out different jobs, and then they can also have internship opportunities or seasonal employment, depending on the employer. And a really great thing about that is that we can pay the individual during that experience. So if it's an unpaid experience with the employer, they become a Service Source employee, and Service Source can pay them, and we get reimbursed by DARS. So it's a great opportunity for some folks to have their first paid experience. A lot of these were already mentioned: wraparound services, benefits counseling, community support services. We also have a peers program. We're actually recruiting for peers right now. We have the next one coming up, I believe, at the end of April or beginning of May. So if anyone's interested in that, please feel free to send a message. DARS does fund that service. And then we also have some people who do private pay for that service. We also have a driver's permit program as well that is starting, I believe, in the next couple of weeks, and that is a virtual service where we're helping people to prepare for the written portion of their learner's permit exam. We also have a specialized transportation program. So for individuals who are interested in using Uber, and we provide 50% off to be able to use Uber on a regular basis. And we also have companion services. We have a community endowment fund to remove barriers to employment for individuals in need. So where are individuals working in?
Can I back up one? You said,
Yeah.
Lauren, you were talking about the peers. That's a peer group, correct? Is that open to anybody, or do you have to be a day or employment?
So the
recipient?
peers is not it's a social skills group. So peers is a social skills group, and there's 2 groups happening simultaneously. One is for the group for the individuals learning social skills, and then there's another group happening at the same time for social coaches. So often those social coaches are parents or sometimes older siblings, involve family members. And both of them are learning skills that are going to help that individual with building their soft skills and social skills. So it might be, how do we enter a conversation? How do we exit a conversation? How do we deal with bullying? There's a dating section for people who are interested in learning more about dating. So there's a lot of great information shared. And then there's some homework that people do in between those sessions.
But do they have to be a day program or employment program recipient to take that? That was my question.
They do not.
Okay.
No.
Okay,
Nope.
so just like Best Buddies, there's some things they offer that you don't have to be specifically with that. And if they're interested, they should contact you or their service coordinator?
Yeah, so if they are connected with DARS, they would definitely want to talk to their DARS counselor to see if DARS would be able to fund that service. And then if DARS isn't able to fund that service, we do have some families who choose to do private pay. And
Thank
so
you.
they're welcome to reach out to us, but if they're connected to DARS, I would encourage them to go through DARS to see if DARS will pay for it.
Okay, well, sorry to use up your seconds, but you have 2 minutes and 22 seconds left.
Okay, so this is just, these are some current employer partners in Arlington, where people are working, where people are trying out jobs through job tryouts, a lot of different locations, different types of employment, and different types of opportunities that people are trying out. And then here's some examples of employment opportunities where people are, the job titles of where people are working. And then I'll very quickly give one, hopefully I'll have time for one. I had two prepared, but we have one individual. She lives in Arlington, and before the pandemic, she found a position with Flick, which is a contractor at a government contract building. And she was providing support at the cash register, and it was a fantastic position because it was a cash register that only took credit cards. So she was really interested in interacting with people and using her excellent customer service skills, but she didn't really want to handle cash, and it was a great opportunity for her. And she also liked she was at the cash register in their cafeteria, and she really liked being around food and supporting folks with getting their food. So during the pandemic, that closed down, and they never really reopened to the same level that they were before because so many people chose to do remote services. So we reconnected this individual with DARS. We helped the person find another position at Marshall's. And I should also mention that before she was working in McLean, Virginia, so outside of Arlington. So then she found another position working at Marshall's, and unfortunately that wasn't the right fit either. Marshall's wasn't able to give her the hours that she was looking for, and she really missed being working in that kind of food service environment. So then we went back to the drawing board again. DARS said, let's look for another position. And we helped her apply at a senior living community in Arlington. And the next day she got a call for an interview. We supported her during that interview, and she got the job, on the job to be a server in their dining room area. And so we provided support on site for job coaching and off site. And she's been there for about 5 months now, and she's very happy. So that's a story of an Arlington resident working in Arlington. And I have had one more, but I think I'm out of time. So we'll leave it at that.
Right on time. And our last but not least is Elizabeth Foster with Melwood. And Melwood, I know ServiceSource has sites in Arlington, but Melwood actually has a whole employment center in Arlington. So do you want to take it away, Elizabeth?
I would love to take it away, but I know people need to wake up because it's been pretty long. So I will try to be as exciting as possible. Just kidding. Okay, so I was looking at some of the questions that you had, and I first want to just generally say we are a provider. We're a DARS provider, CSB. We do all the job-related services that pretty much everybody else does. So I'm just going to focus mostly on what we do uniquely. So our provider, we have developed and implemented several innovative programming. One is Ability, which is our IT program, which was started in 2019. This has been tremendous. We have a number of people that have attended from Arlington and Arlington County. It's just been amazing. We also have our Building Paths program, which is our construction program that we piloted in Maryland. We're looking to expand here in Virginia, and we're very excited about that. I'll tell you a little bit about it. So IT and Building Paths takes that soft skills development and wraps it around credentialing and certifications. So Bill IT, actually COVID was good to us in many respects, in that we took what was really a great program and we were able to deliver it virtually. So now there's no limit as to who we can serve. If you can come in person some of the time, that's great. If you can only participate virtually, that's fine too. And we have served over 200 people since our pilot started in 2019. The application process for both Ability and Building Paths is really easy. You go to our melwood.org webpage and you register. And there are a lot of little videos on there where people are telling their own stories. And if you ever get a chance and you want to feel good, and you're having a lousy day, go ahead and look at those videos, because it changes everything. And how you look at life and what you're able to provide somebody is life changing. We started having some difficulty around figuring out how do we pay for these programs, right? And we didn't want to limit programming to people that just were receiving services through CSB and DARS, et cetera. So we have made it a very intentional focus on raising money, on getting grants, and we have been very successful. And so we are able to provide those services free to charge. That includes the credentialing. And if anybody knows anything about IT, credentials like A+, Network Plus, Security Plus are pretty darn expensive, and we're able to cover that. And then in Building Paths, which is our in-person skilled trades program, we partner with a college for coursework, while at the same time they're getting some hands-on training and credentials. And we do things like flagger. Those flagger positions pay really well. And all you need to do is be able to follow directions, be safe, hold that stop sign. I mean, there are great opportunities out there. And we have excavation safety and so on, and OSHA training. There's so many credentials. What we try to do with both of these programs is provide an opportunity for someone to get a job that somebody might say no to. Why not hire an employee that has all these credentials? Clearly, they're able to do their job. Clearly, they're able to complete a program. Why not take a chance, right? And so that's been really awesome. And we've also been shooting some folks into scholarship, schools with scholarships, et cetera. And some people are getting apprenticeships, which is amazing. We are also a neurodiverse federal workforce provider. We had a great program with the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, and were able to get externs into the agency, and then they got employment, which was really great. And one of those participants actually came out of Arlington. And here was somebody who was fresh out of college, was really horrible at interviewing. He tells you this story, maybe not so great at working on a team, etc. Got into this program, and he actually presented at the Neurodiverse conference last week. He was amazing. He's living on his own. He's got roommates. He's not on any benefits. It's really terrific, some of the stories that we have. We want to list some of the positions we've gotten for people from Arlington, and that includes financial analyst, administrative assistant, data entry, IT help desk technician, process support analyst, federal quality assurance associate. That's a mouthful, right? And that fella too is from Arlington, and he went to college. He had some credentials. He came into a Bill IT. He just couldn't interview his way out of a paper bag. And he really was terrible at filling out applications, etc. Went in the program and just was the bomb diggity. And he too is working right in a blue chip organization, one of our prime employers, and he sits on our board, which is amazing. We are planning several innovative plans, including increasing the type of career opportunities similar to IT, similar to getting into the skilled trades. We're looking at other career areas. We want to make a wide range of options available to people with disabilities so that it's not a barrier. We are on 60 federal contract sites. So if you know somebody who wants to get a job right now with Melwood, there are a ton of positions open, and they're not just custodial and landscaping. There are lots of opportunities out there. We're so happy we have an earmark coming, which means that's huge, that we can expand a lot. And we are also planning to implement an after-school care youth development center. And our same place that we are in Arlington, we're looking at a mixed use of that property. Hopefully, if everybody approves that and it gets rolling and we can get that going, that would be great if we could get some folks with disabilities who love to take care of children on whatever level that they're at to maybe have those experiences there. So honestly, not everybody is the same. Everybody is different. Everybody gets different needs, but we've really tried to focus on what a person wants for their career. And we try really hard to meet a training expectation, a credential opportunity, and really working with people who really love doing what they do and serving this community. So I'll be glad to take any questions. My email is simple, efoster@melwood.org, super duper easy. And we are located right in Crystal City off of 23rd Street. So we're right there in the hub, and very convenient for most people since there's a bus stop right outside our place, and we're only about a couple blocks from the metro. So thank you. I'm trying to make that quick and leave us
Oh
time
my
to answer
gosh.
any questions.
Everybody did such a great job. Thank you. And I do want to thank Diana Monig from the ARC, because as we were putting this together, I'm going like, what do I ask? How do I do this? Who do I ask? And that the book that I referred folks to in the email, take a look at that, because there's a lot of ins and outs from parent tested ways of doing things that we want to make sure, just like Delbria and LaVoice were saying, we want to make sure everybody gets this information. And I am beyond excited to see a group from our stomping ground right there. And the folks, can you please wave? We are also moving toward people with disabilities, this not being parents' choice. I think that I believe it was the person from the choice group that says this is about the person who wants to work, not necessarily about a parent who wants their person to work. So I want to thank you, Stomping Ground folks, for coming to this and owning up to this. So at that, we have 10 minutes left. I'm going to go up. Oops, I'm going to go to the top of the list. But in the meantime, if there is a question from Stomping Ground, or anyone with a disability who has a question, please raise your hand. We'll recognize you and you can ask your own question. But I'm going to go to the top and work my way down to the other questions. So the first question I think was about I can't find it at the second, but it was from Lucia, and she was asking about what Arlington is doing to hire people at the Arlington Government Center or working for Arlington government. And I know that Bertram McGann and I presented to our county board for our budget asks last week, and the county board was very excited about employment opportunities for people with intellectual developmental disabilities in the government center. LaVoice said that she will not mention names, but there is someone who does have a job at the county government center. But LaVoice, do you want to add anything, or Del Rio, do you want to add anything to that question?
Sherry, I don't have anything to add. I think that you pretty much summed up what, our county board's commitment and interest. And I think I responded to a version of that question in the chat already. So thank you very much.
Okay, and then Wong Pham said, who do we work with to find jobs for people with disabilities and get the needed support at work? And that would be through your service coordinator or your transition coordinator. I know Joy is on this call from Arlington County. And again, if anyone with a disability who has a question that they want to ask, you can interrupt us and raise your hand. The county government, Carol, I want to know if clients who are county funded express an interest in working, but then are not able to, or they change their minds, would they be able to go back to a day program? Is there someone who can answer that question?
And that's a question I also answered in the chat. Most of the questions in the chat I answered if you scroll down.
Okay, so LaVoice, do you want to help me with the questions that weren't answered then?
So that's one of the ones that's answered in the chat.
Okay.
And I can, in the interest of time, I will just defer to what's in the chat so that we can move forward with the questions that aren't answered in the chat. I can't see the chat right now, so you're going to have to
okay.
read them out.
I would just like to, I think a lot of us do this, and I just wanted to share that, Service Source, definitely we do hybrid all the time. We have a small group supported site at our Fort Myer location, and several of the people in that group supported site are attending part-time. So they job share with other people who also want to attend part-time and do other things on other days. So that's definitely something that we support at Service Source.
And hybrid would mean that some days you go to your job and some days you go to your day program. Is that correct?
Yeah, or somewhere, somewhere, somewhere if either a day program, or some people do companion services on their days off, or the variety of things.
Okay. Liz asked, DARS used to help find jobs. DARS does contract with the employment service providers to help people find jobs, but they wouldn't necessarily do a direct job placement like, say, an unemployment, what was traditionally known as unemployment offices would do. And I think we heard a lot about remote working opportunities. Elizabeth, this Bill IT, you have people working remotely doing that work.
Yeah,
Is that
that's
correct?
a really, really, really great question. There were a lot more opportunities during COVID. Some of these have scaled back, but a number of positions have continued in a remote status because, especially for people who are neurodivergent, it is a great option. And you get their best work when they are in a situation that they can participate, virtually anywhere. For example, we had two people who participated in a Bill IT from California. We're like, oh, okay, we'll work with somebody in California to get them a job, right? No, actually, a big employer approached us from Paramount/Nickelodeon.
Wow.
And they met the qualifications, they applied for the positions, and they are able to work there remotely, which is really terrific. But again, there's very few positions now that are 100% remote. You do need to ask if it's a possibility that at least part of the time you could do your job remotely, because you never know. Maybe they'll say yes, right? I always say, always ask, make them say no, right?
Yeah.
Especially if it's a reasonable accommodation. Somebody's willing to disclose their disability and have asked for that. We've had a number of people be very successful with that. So it depends on the position. Some types, career areas are much more prone to a virtual option than others. And it is, again, much reduced than what we saw during COVID.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer, I have a question from Stomping Ground that you may be able to add to what Elizabeth spoke about with the certification programs and apprenticeships, because I know DARS has an apprenticeship initiative. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's a lot of people are focusing on apprenticeships right now. It's a really great way to gain experience while also getting paid and getting some of the certifications. So if that's something of interest, there's multiple kind of ways to go about it. We do currently have a grant that's kind of focusing on a lot on IT. There are, I know, various other places. I'm struggling off the top of my head, but yeah, if an apprenticeship is an interest, but make sure you talk to your counselor about it, because it depends on the industry as to which direction it will go. But it's a great way to gain experience, getting paid at the same time, and so not having those student loans or things like that, but still getting certifications and training to do good paying jobs.
And then Elizabeth, I'm just going to call on you because your face happens to be on the screen right now. But so let's just say I was going to Melwood and I found out that say MVLE had this great apprenticeship program and exactly this type of thing that I wanted. I could go to my DARS counselor. Would I hurt your feelings if I went to another provider?
Oh,
Because
heck
I
no,
don't, I mean, I love you. I don't want to hurt your feelings. So
no, it is absolutely not going to hurt my feelings. Our biggest drive is to make sure somebody gets employed. We work all the time across each other. Melwood has people that, you know, from all these agencies and vice versa. We want to make sure someone gets employed in the area that best fits them. We also really have taken on the seriousness of the barriers to transportation. Thanks for somebody bringing that up, because that is significant. If you're not right in the city, and even for people that are right in the city, it can still be significant. So, you know, if we can find jobs close to the area where they live, that can reduce some of those barriers. So of course we're going to call somebody, hey, if you got a position, we're going to fit you in. Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
So the Uber program that you have at Melwood, if my child goes to another, say the choice group, could I participate in your Uber training program, or do I have to be part of Melwood?
I think
Uber training is not mine.
I'm sorry,
Service
Lauren.
Source,
Lauren,
yeah, Service Source has the Uber transportation program, and that is a supplemental program. So you do need to be a part of either employment or a community integration program to participate in the Uber program. But I was just going to add that Service Source, you know, we had someone that was interested in IT training. They had graduated with a bachelor's degree and was having trouble with, you know, a lot of times now with IT, it's not the bachelor's degree, it's the certifications, the industry recognized certifications. And so we connected him with Melwood for the Able IT program, and he went through that. So just in terms of partnering across, that's something that we do all the time.
And
I wanted to mention
exciting this cohort, just exciting throwing it out there. We're piloting an evening cohort because we know a lot of people are looking to upskill. For example, we had a custodian on one of our contract sites attend to Bill IT to upskill, and we want to provide that opportunity to somebody. So we started a new cohort yesterday. I can't wait to jump on after we hang up to see how they're doing. But we want to also, you know, make those tweaks in our pilots. So if you guys see any needs that we're missing, or maybe there's a credential we're not offering that we're missing, please, you know, communicate that with me. We want to make sure we serve everybody.
Right. I want to thank everyone for attending and being interested. For those of you who are part of the parent network, please let other folks know that this was recorded. It will be posted. We will share the PowerPoint. So if you had a PowerPoint and you didn't have an opportunity to share it, please send it to me and I'll put everything in a PDF so it's small enough to send. And I want to thank everybody. I'm so excited about the opportunities in Arlington, and I'm happy for the parents who are just kind of going like, I don't know where I'm supposed to go. I don't know where I'm supposed to look, and there's too many people for me to decide. So hopefully this will help many parents say, okay, well, this is where I want to try next. So thank you very, very much. And we have ended at 6:01. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank you.
evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one, everybody.
Have a good
Tom,
night.
Tom, we can stop the recording, but can you please save the chat? Oh. Can you please save the chat, Tom?